Hi, I'm Linnell. While I was in Zurich closing a $2 billion deal, my sister stripped me from the company we built together and drained our joint account. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It was the silence. The months of her smiling through strategy meetings, knowing she'd already forged my signature. She rewrote my role in our story, erased me from the website, paid off my assistant, and made sure our parents stood by her. And when I found out, I didn't scream. I started documenting. But if she could do this to her own sister, what else was she willing to destroy? I arrived in Zurich with a packed carry-on, 3 backup copies of the presentation, and what I thought was clarity. It was supposed to be a defining week, the culmination of nearly 9 years of building a company from scratch alongside Vera, my sister. She had the PR face. I had the technical grounding. She worked the rooms. I worked the models. We made a good team until we didn't. The hotel lobby smelled like fresh polish and citrus air freshener. I checked in, signed a couple of non-disclosures from the partner group, and went straight to the mirror in the elevator. I looked sharp, grounded. A tailored navy dress, sleek bun, red lipstick. The kind of look that says, "You can't ignore me, even if they wanted to." Upstairs, I opened my laptop, queued the investor files, and began skimming through the final deck one last time. Everything looked tight. Our biotech licensing strategy, the timeline, the distribution plan. My name was on the slide deck footers. Prepared by Lunell R. Carter, co-founder and chief strategy officer. That night, I went over the pitch twice before bed. Not once did I think to double-check the title slide. The conference started promptly at 9. The ballroom buzzed with executives, analysts, and legal teams. I took my seat near the front, glanced around, gave a polite nod to the Swiss rep who had been our anchor through due diligence. Then the lights dimmed, and the first slide flashed onto the towering screen. CEO, Vera R. Carter. My mouth went dry. There was no co-founder, no chief strategy officer, no mention of me at all. It wasn't a formatting issue. It was intentional. The logo was centered, the tagline perfect, the typography Vera's favorite sleek minimalist. Someone had made this slide very carefully. A polite wave of applause followed. The kind of clap you give when you're not entirely sure what you're clapping for, but the room tells you it's the right moment to do it. I sat frozen. I pulled out my phone under the table and texted her. Me. Hey, was that a design mistake? Vera. Let's talk after the signing. Timing is everything, sis. Timing is everything. I watched her glide onto the stage, flawless in her black power suit, greeting the moderator like she hadn't just erased me from the biggest presentation of our lives. I kept my face neutral, nodding politely during her talking points. But beneath that still surface, gears were turning, fast. My sister wasn't subtle, she never had been. And if this was her move, then something deeper had already taken root. Later that afternoon, I skipped the networking mixer and went back to my suite. I took off my heels, poured a glass of water, and sat down, trying to make sense of what just happened. But even as I tried to rationalize it, maybe it was a PR decision, maybe the design team messed up, I knew better. I started replaying the last few months, Vera canceling weekly syncs, pushing for me to travel more, requesting access to dashboards she didn't need. She'd stopped asking for my opinion on legal filings. There were accidental exclusions from board emails. Staff had grown oddly cold, less collaborative, slower to reply. Then there was her suggestion that I stay in Zurich for a while after the deal. To relax, she'd said. You've been working nonstop. This wasn't a shift in dynamics. This was a pivot, and I wasn't informed. After a long shower and a skipped dinner, I changed into sweats, sat at the desk by the window, and opened my laptop. The city lights of Zurich shimmered below me, quiet and indifferent. I typed in our internal company portal, my dashboard where I reviewed investor metrics, legal drafts, and IP roadmaps. Username, LR Carter. Password. The screen blinked once. Access denied. I tried again. Access denied. I refreshed the page. Your credentials have been revoked. Please contact your administrator. I sat back, stared at the screen for a few seconds, then closed the lid slowly. Something had been set in motion. And tonight, I wasn't just out of a meeting or a slide deck. I was out. The hotel room was quiet. Too quiet for the way my pulse was pounding. I sat there in front of the dark screen, the words "access denied" still glowing in my mind like neon graffiti sprayed across everything I'd worked for. I stared out at Zurich's skyline, glass and lights against a sleeping city, but all I could think of was Austin. Our office. My name on the wall. My keycard still dangling on my lanyard back home like it meant something. It was close to midnight. I pushed back from the desk and reached for my phone, dialing the IT line we rarely used. After 3 rings, a tired male voice picked up. "Tech support, this is Brian. This is Lunel Carter. I'm in Zurich. I need to understand why my credentials aren't working." He paused. I could hear the hesitation right through the line. "Oh, Ms. Carter, I was told to redirect any access issues from your end to legal." "Redirected by whom?" I said, sharper now. I can't say. I was just following a memo from Vera's office. Look, I really shouldn't." "Brian," I cut in. "Listen to me carefully. Don't lie to me. Not tonight." Silence stretched longer than it should have. "I'm sorry," he said eventually. "I didn't want to get involved. You've always been decent to us." I ended the call without another word, heart now pounding for a very different reason. I wasn't just being locked out, I was being buried. Opening my laptop again, I started screenshotting everything I could. Internal notices, logs, email headers, anything that might help me piece together what was unfolding behind my back. You don't slam the door on a founder unless you're hiding something behind it. At 12:34 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was Malcolm, my personal attorney, calling from Austin. I answered immediately. "Tell me something good," I muttered. "I can't," he said. His voice was calm but tight. "Lunel, Vera called an emergency board session 2 days ago, without you." "What?" My hand clenched. "Under what authority?" "She used your proxy signature, claimed you'd authorized her for decisions while you were abroad." "That's false. We never agreed to that. Not for governance." "Legally, it's murky, but she framed it as temporary delegation of power. Claimed you signed off months ago in a joint compliance update." "That was boilerplate," I snapped, "and it had nothing to do with voting rights." "I know, but the board didn't push back." I exhaled slowly, grounding myself. "So what's the result?" "You've been voted out as active executive and removed from operational access." The silence that followed was thick. I could hear Malcolm breathing. "There's more," he added. "You might want to check your accounts." "What did she take?" "Start with the joint business account." I didn't hesitate. I opened the bank portal, entered our credentials, and there it was. Available balance, 82,14. I scrolled through the recent activity. My throat dried as I scanned the line items. Transfers, withdrawals, one after the next, all signed off with her name. The last transaction stood out like a gunshot. Wire transfer, $5,702 worse. To Carter Holdings Consulting. I clicked on the routing details. A shell company, not affiliated with our firm, not on our legal books. No legitimate reason for that account to exist. She didn't just want control, I whispered. She wanted everything. I sat motionless for a while, staring at the screen, letting the numbness fade into something sharper, something cleaner. Anger came in waves, but it wasn't blind. It wasn't wild. It was surgical, purposeful. You can steal my access. You can steal the funds. You can even get the board to nod along like bobbleheads who forgot who built the damn brand. But you forgot one thing. I'm still me. I closed the laptop, stood in the dark hotel room, and realized, for the first time, I wasn't afraid to go to war. I didn't sleep. Not for a second. The glow of Zurich outside the window was no comfort. It might as well have been a black hole sucking everything I thought I knew into silence. The city moved beneath me, unaware, while I sat upright at the desk, one leg tucked under me, one hand gripping a pen that had long stopped writing. The phrase kept echoing. Proxy signature. That was the legal language Malcolm used. It sounded sterile, procedural, cold. But what it really meant was this. My sister had planned a coup while smiling across the conference table. I opened my archived emails. Not the recent ones. Those were too clean, too polished. I started digging into the old folders, the ones no one checks until they're looking for something dirty. And then I found it. It was dated just over 2 years ago, a forwarded thread between Vera and a compliance consultant. The subject line, Question Re, Absentee Executive Clause. The most damning line was in Vera's own words. What if my co-founder is out of the country during a vote? Would a prior delegation hold if the board agrees informally? There it was. She'd been laying the tracks long before the $2 billion deal was ever even real. Long before I booked this flight. Long before she hugged me at the airport and said, "Come back with champagne." I sat back in my chair, phone dangling loosely in my hand. The betrayal wasn't born last week. It was cultivated, like rot under fresh paint. And the signs? They had been there. 6 months ago, Vera started skipping internal project reviews, claimed she had strategy sessions with the PR team, but never followed up with minutes or summaries. She told me I should really focus on external partners, suggested I spend more time traveling to build global optics. Then she began asking for my access keys for convenience, said her assistant needed to handle logistics while I was out. Slowly, she centralized all the core functions under her office, HR, PR, investor comms. And I let her. Why? Because I was too proud to micromanage, too sure that we had an unspoken code. I lead from the back end, she shines up front. That's how we worked. But she wasn't maintaining balance. She was consolidating power. Betrayal never slaps you, I whispered to no one. It whispers. I walked to the minibar, grabbed a small water bottle, and stood in the middle of the suite. My heart wasn't racing anymore. I wasn't even angry in the way I had been hours ago. That kind of fury burns hot and fast. This was different. This was precision. This was clarity. She thinks I'm soft because I don't yell. She thinks I'm vulnerable because I didn't fight her name on that screen. She thinks silence is surrender. I sat back down, pulled my notebook toward me, and drew a line down the middle of a page. Left side, everything Vera now controlled, HR, finance reports, digital assets, our PR pipeline. Right side, what she forgot to touch. The original founding documents, the IP rights, our encrypted investor portal, my stake in the brand architecture. Metadata, most people don't know where it lives, but I do. At the top of the page, I wrote 4 words. Don't react, respond. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about accountability. And I wasn't going to scream or beg or explain myself in a public memo like she probably hoped I would. I would dismantle her illusion one verified document at a time. This wasn't about my absence, it was about my silence. And now that silence ends, morning came slow and gray, like the world outside Zurich had softened to match the hollowness I felt inside. I hadn't touched the bed. Instead, I'd spent most of the night sitting upright on the sofa, watching the city go to sleep, then stir again. My coffee sat cold on the table, untouched. I didn't need caffeine. I needed truth. I opened the laptop again, fingers moving not out of hope, but habit. I logged into a cached version of our internal portal. Most of the functions were grayed out, but I still had backdoor access to a few archived views. It was muscle memory, systems I helped design, interfaces I'd structured over years. The homepage loaded. It looked unfamiliar. The team page had new bios. Mine was gone entirely, replaced by an AI-generated placeholder that described Vera as the singular vision behind the company's revolutionary market entry. No mention of me. No mention of co-founder. No reference to my role in building the strategy that had secured this deal. Then I saw it. In the Slack archive, some public team channel buried in the noise, someone had commented, "Didn't Vera found this alone?" Another replied, "Thought so. That's what the onboarding doc says now." I didn't blink. I just started screen recording, page by page. Every change, every line that had erased me. This wasn't just an oversight. It was a deliberate rewrite of history. When history is edited, someone is trying to own your legacy. I switched tabs and pulled up our public website. My stomach sank. The founders page used to have 2 names, 2 photos. Now it was Vera alone. The second image, mine, was gone. In its place was some generic placeholder labeled Initial Startup Team. The tone was vague, as if I'd never existed, just some early intern who drifted away. Even the blog posts I'd authored, white papers, press releases, strategy breakdowns, were reassigned or scrubbed. Everything I'd put into this brand was being lifted from the surface like it had never happened. I texted the PR director, Marissa. Me. Who approved the updates on the website and team bio? Marissa. Vera's office. I was told you were stepping back permanently. I didn't question it. Of course she didn't. People rarely do when orders come from someone in a corner office. Me. I didn't authorize any of that. You're complicit in removing a founder's public record. You understand that, right? She didn't respond. I leaned back, took a breath, and let it wash over me. Shock had passed. Now I was in something colder, more precise. I wasn't just being pushed out, I was being digitally deleted. I clicked into our admin system. Most permissions were revoked, but I still had audit visibility. I began tracking logins. It didn't take long. Vera's executive assistant, Renee, had signed into the AI automation dashboard 3 days prior. The AI they'd used to rewrite the company's history was logged under her account. I exported everything. Time-stamped logs, revision histories, the overwrite trail. Then I opened my encrypted email to Malcolm. Subject: They're rewriting me. Message: Find attached documentation from our CMS, AI interface, and web admin logs. Begin preparing a response strategy. This is orchestrated reputation erasure. We're dealing with calculated fraud, on record and intent. I hit send. You think this is just deletion, but it's defamation with a smile. I refreshed the homepage one last time, scrolling to the bottom of the site. And that's when I saw it, tucked in the footer, in the smallest font possible. C. 2025. Founded by Vera W. It started with a ping. Just past 8 in the morning, as I sat with my second bitter espresso and a half-eaten croissant, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." The sender, Lydia Holmes. Lydia had been my assistant for 6 years. She knew my schedule before I did, knew how I took my coffee, knew when I needed space and when I needed fire behind me. I had vouched for her promotion, written her grad school recommendations, helped her through her divorce. And now, this. I opened the email. I didn't want to do this, but Vera promised job security and equity. I couldn't afford to be loyal to both sides. I reread that line 4 times before the rest of the email even registered. She apologized for staying quiet during the board shift, for helping reroute files to Vera's direct cloud account, for sitting silently as Vera removed me from everything I helped create. There was no signature, no sincerely, no courage. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't just business anymore. This was personal and betrayal. Betrayal hits hardest when it comes from the ones you pulled up from the mud. You never see the knife until you feel it in your back, I muttered aloud. And for once, I didn't care if the hotel walls heard me. I needed air. After showering and throwing on jeans and a clean blazer, I opened my inbox again. Mostly investor noise, a few PR fire drills. Then a name caught my eye. Daniel Fairchild, a longtime board ally. He didn't send a message, just a screenshot. A Google Calendar event labeled Executive Planning Summit, Strategy Realignment, hosted by Vera W. Under attendees, I scanned the list. C-suite, department heads, consultants, board liaisons. Where my name should have been, it said, Legacy Advisor, TBD. I called Malcolm immediately. My voice, for the first time in days, cracked. She's already replacing me like I died, I said. He didn't respond right away. Then softly, we're past subtle. She's making her move. No, Malcolm, I said, standing now, pacing. She already made it. I'm done watching. That afternoon, I wrote my first internal statement since Zurich. I addressed it to the board, CC'd legal, and blind copied every senior team lead I had ever mentored. Subject: cease and desist. Misuse of intellectual property and executive materials. Body: effective immediately. Any use of presentation content, trademarks, or internal strategy documents originating from my authorship without explicit authorization constitutes breach of founder rights and IP ownership. I will pursue every legal recourse if further use or public dissemination continues. You may continue your meetings without me, but know this. The table you're sitting at, I built it. I signed it, attached the doc, and hit send. Then I called IT compliance and gave them a final instruction. Freeze all folders tagged Founder Archive, original strategy docs, and anything Vera's team had accessed within the last 60 days. They hesitated. Are we still honoring your permissions, Ms. Carter? The technician asked carefully. You will today, I replied. As I logged off, another email arrived. This one from Vera herself. 6 words. If it's war you want, okay. By the third day in Zurich, I'd grown used to waking up not to emails, not to meeting invites or Slack notifications, but to the sharp stillness of being erased. The morning had been slow, almost surreal, but by late afternoon, the adrenaline had settled into something clearer. Structure. I made a list on paper, yes, actual paper, of what I had left, what Vera didn't know I still had access to. And then, as if summoned by that thought, my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made me blink. Uncle Morven. He never called. A voice of wisdom buried beneath a layer of family politics. Morven had kept his distance ever since he left the company's original advisory board years ago. But today, he had something to say. I answered. I saw the headlines, he said before I could even greet him. And I've seen this before. What do you mean? I asked. She did it to me once, he said, voice level but heavy. Tried to strip my name from the original patent of the analytics tool I built with your father. I let it go because I thought family meant more than credit. Don't make my mistake. There was a pause. You need a firewall, he said, and a paper trail. Morven offered access to a private legal vault he had kept running, an independent backup of documents from the early days. It wasn't company-sanctioned, but it wasn't illegal either. Redundant systems are how old engineers sleep at night. I'm emailing you the credentials, he added. They may rewrite the narrative, but not the timestamps. It didn't take long. He'd already organized the data, folders labeled by year, project, authorship. It was all there, version history, draft comments, date stamps. I opened one project deck and saw my own name on the metadata. Created by L. Carter. A dozen edits. Last saved under my account. One folder even contained the brainstorm audio logs from the founding phase. Hearing my voice on those clips, that brought it all back. There were timestamps Vera couldn't scrub, and records she didn't even know existed. My hands were shaking, not from rage this time, but clarity. I texted Malcolm. Prepare for incoming. I found our anchor. We worked until dark. I laid out a timeline, file by file. What Vera had presented to the board versus what I could prove had originated in my hand. Then I created a master document labeled, What Vera Removed versus What I Created. Each section contained the asset, date of authorship, last edit, IP tag, and the visual evidence. Where possible, I included cross-references to internal memos and investor drafts. I encrypted the file and sent it to Malcolm. Then I looped in 2 board members I trusted, people who hadn't responded to me lately, but whom I knew had a backbone once, even if they'd grown quiet. "Review everything," I wrote. "This is the real timeline." After sending it, I stared out the window again. Zurich was still humming, unaware. My phone buzzed with Malcolm's reply. "You've got your receipts. Now let's make them read." I smiled, small, quiet. Not victory, not yet, but something close. They took my name off the front page. I'm putting it back, in font size 72. Just before midnight, I was finalizing a secondary copy when Morven pinged me on encrypted chat. "You might want to check who accessed your archive last," he wrote. It wasn't me. I woke up to the sound of my name in a headline. Leaked audio casts doubt on co-founder's integrity. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I reached for my phone, hand still half asleep, and tapped into the article. There was a clip embedded at the top. My voice, clipped, flat, talking about investor expectations. But the context was off. Completely wrong. I'd said those words in a private strategy session months ago in response to an internal budget conversation, but they'd edited it, spliced in commentary from another call, and made it sound like I was mocking the very people we were pitching to in Zurich. The audio was slick. Too slick. I texted Malcolm immediately. "She just dropped a doctored clip. Public." His reply came in under a minute. "Already on it. Sit tight." Then Marissa, our PR director, pinged me on Signal. "Marissa, I didn't know she was going to release that. She told the team it was about transparency, said you'd stepped away." Me. "And you didn't think to verify with me?" Marissa. "She said you'd asked not to be contacted." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. "A lie dressed in professionalism still stinks," I muttered under my breath. I'd barely tossed on my blazer when the next ping came. This one from Morven. Morven. "Check your inbox, now." Attached was a video file, time-stamped from the week before Zurich. Labeled, "Do not use, internal draft only." I opened it. It was a behind-the-scenes clip from Vera's prep session with her media coach. The footage wasn't meant for the public. It captured her rehearsing how to pivot if I asked about my removal. Then came the sentence that cracked through everything. "She'll be in Zurich. We'll roll it out here without her noise." The coach asked, "You're sure she won't push back?" "She never does," Vera smirked. "She'll process it in a journal somewhere. By the time she realizes what happened, we'll be 6 press releases deep." I stared at the screen, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Morven's voice rang through the call. "They didn't just exclude you, Lunel. They banked on you staying silent." He was right. I forwarded the full clip to Malcolm with one line. "If they use that audio again, release this. All of it." Then I drafted a message to the 2 remaining board members I still had hope in, Daniel Fairchild and Elena Boyd. I kept it brief. Subject, context, and choices. Body. What's happening isn't personal. It's premeditated sabotage. Attached are metadata logs, original deck authorship history. Footage of Vera acknowledging my removal was orchestrated, not earned. This is no longer a family disagreement. This is breach, plain and simple. Choose wisely. I didn't send it yet. I stared at the send button like it might bite me. Then I exhaled and clicked. "If they came to play dirty," I whispered, "I came to rewrite the rules." Hours passed. No response. Then, just past 11, a system-wide notification hit my inbox. New statement from Vera W. Protecting the company from internal sabotage. Vera called for a special board session under the guise of restructuring. The irony wasn't lost on me. I hadn't slept, but I didn't need rest. I needed resolve. The call opened at 9 a.m., Austin time, which meant I was backlit by the afternoon sun in Zurich. The screen displayed 10 faces. Familiar, hesitant, and then hers. "Ms. Carter?" Vera said the moment I entered the frame. You weren't on the invite list. I smiled. Calm. Controlled. I may not be on the calendar, I said, but I built the schedule. Silence. The moderator cleared his throat. We can give Ms. Carter 3 minutes to address the group. Vera looked like she wanted to object, but the board already shifted slightly, leaning in toward their screens. Curiosity had gravity. I shared my screen. I'd like to show you something, I said, clicking on the file marked Company, History, Clip, Unreleased, .move. The video opened with B-roll from a PR shoot. Our office, our team, early product mock-ups. Then the audio began. It was Vera's voice. She'll be in Zurich, she said, looking off camera. We'll roll it out here without her noise. Her media coach responded, You're certain she won't object? Vera's laugh was quick, confident. Lunel, she processes betrayal in a journal. By the time she reacts, the board will have already moved on. The video cut to another clip, Vera talking through the fake timeline of her supposed sole leadership, intercut with timestamps and my original documents. There were audible gasps. Someone on the call forgot to mute their mic. She really did set her up, a male voice whispered. Vera went pale. That video is out of context, highly edited. It's a smear. I leaned forward. Then let's talk context, I said, dragging another window onto the screen. Malcolm had timed it perfectly. The notarized document hit every board member's inbox simultaneously. A signature comparison report. Mine versus the one Vera used to reassign her voting authority and transfer assets. One look, and even a blind man could see it wasn't my signature. This, I said, isn't just betrayal. This is criminal impersonation. Daniel Fairchild took off his glasses slowly. I want to request an emergency audit of all operational decisions made in the last 6 months. I second it, Elena Boyd added, her voice taut. The screen split into private chats. Names blinked in and out of frame. Vera was still frozen. Not technically, she was live, but her expression hadn't moved. Then, without a word, she clicked the leave button, and just before her camera cut, the video feed glitched. Just a second, but it was long enough for me to see her eyes. Wide. Empty. That was the last time I saw her in control. Victory doesn't feel like a parade. There was no confetti, no sudden swell of music in the background. Just silence, and a frozen screen where Vera's unreadable face had hovered for a second too long before she vanished from the call. That morning, the board postponed all further votes, citing pending legal review. Malcolm texted me only 3 words, hold your ground. And so I did. Back in my suite, I sat motionless by the window, watching Zurich continue like nothing had shifted. Meanwhile, in Austin, public opinion had begun to turn. The press wasn't kind to Vera anymore. They weren't cruel either, just curious. Curious in that slow, methodical way that always leads to the kind of headlines nobody recovers from. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt nothing. No surge of satisfaction, no spark of revenge completed, just numb. The silence broke when my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't saved, but I recognized it anyway. My mother's landline. I hesitated, then picked up. Lunel, she said, no greeting, no warmth. I saw the news, she continued. Is this how you handle family problems now? Through courtrooms and reporters? I closed my eyes, let the words wash over me. I didn't argue. I didn't defend. You should have kept this private, she said. It's humiliating. People are talking. I let the silence stretch before replying. Did you call Vera too? Silence on her end now. I didn't think so, I said. Good to know some things don't change. You've always been the difficult one, she muttered. Always needing attention. I hung up. No yelling, no tears. Just one quiet breath before I put the phone down. Some betrayals are louder than words. Others arrive dressed as phone calls from home. Later that day, Morvan called. "I think it's time I told you everything," he said. We met over a private line. He looked tired but steady. For once, the shadows in his eyes didn't hide anything. 15 years ago, he began, your father set up a trust, meant to be split among three of us. Your father, myself, and Vera. When he passed, the paperwork shifted. I nodded. Shifted how? She forged a document, reworded the trust, made it look like your father had removed me before he passed. I didn't contest it. It was early tech money. I figured, what's a few $100,000 between family? He looked at me carefully. But it was never about money, was it? I said. No, he answered. It was about erasure. She did it to me, then to you, and I didn't stop her the first time. Maybe if I had, you wouldn't be here now. We sat in silence. She's systematic, I finally said. Cleans the scene, rewrites the script. And you? He asked. I'm rewriting it too, I said. That night, I opened my legal templates. Malcolm had already prepped most of it. I just had to sign. Final separation of daily roles. A full legal record of misconduct filed. Control of my equity stake reinforced through IP filings. It was all there. As I drew my pen across the last signature line, I paused. Not for her. For the girl I used to be. The one who still believed Vera wouldn't. 2 days after Vera's screen blinked out of that board meeting, Malcolm called me first thing in the morning. He didn't say hello. She's trying to sell the company, he said. To Luxentech. I blinked. That can't be legal without board approval. She's calling it a strategic realignment. Quiet, informal, and at a massive undervaluation. $300 million. My jaw locked. Our last valuation had cleared $650. $300 million wasn't just a lowball. It was a fire sale. She'd rather burn the house down than share the deed, I said, standing up from the armchair by the window. Malcolm's voice dropped. And Lunel, it gets worse. Of course it did. She's routing payments, he continued, for marketing consultations. But the funds are going to a man named Carter Haverly, private consultancy, zero digital footprint tied to tech. We ran a backtrace. He's linked to 2 failed shell ventures. One was used to funnel cash during a healthcare nonprofit scandal 5 years ago. I already knew the name. Carter H. He'd shown up in old social posts, wine bars, rooftop events, background at a few company parties. Vera always said he was just a friend. I closed my eyes. How much? $2.8 million across 4 transfers. My hand went cold around the phone. She used your money, Lunel, Malcolm said, voice hard, to pad his image. This isn't just betrayal anymore, it's embezzlement. I didn't need time to think. I told Malcolm to prepare a formal motion with the state board. Corporate fraud, internal abuse of executive power, unauthorized attempts to liquidate assets under false valuation. The works. I then opened the group thread I hadn't touched in over a year, the one with the founding team, the one we used when the company was just a slide deck and a dream. Me. Some of you saw what she did to me. You stayed quiet, I get it. Silence buys time. But now you'll see what she did to all of us. I attached the Luxentech proposal she'd drafted behind closed doors, the one Malcolm recovered. I also attached Carter's payment trail. Then I hit send. Not everyone responded, but a few did. Daniel Fairchild. I'm with you. Elena Boyd. Let me know what you need. And that was enough. The motion was filed by noon. The inquiry process triggered within the hour. By 5, the board released a statement to employees. We are evaluating recent executive actions and working to restore operational integrity. Vera didn't respond publicly. She didn't have to. The silence spoke louder now. I sat at my desk, heart strangely still. There was no thrill in this, no triumph, just clarity. That razor-sharp kind that comes not when you win, but when no one can lie to you anymore. They didn't need to cheer for me, I said to Morvan over the phone that evening. Silence was enough this time. He let the line go quiet for a beat. That's how you know you won. I watched the light shift across the Zurich skyline. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like I had to prove I belonged. I had built this, and now I was securing it from those who wanted it without earning it. Later that evening, Malcolm forwarded me a news link. Austin Ledger, breaking. Co-founder steps forward as internal inquiry deepens. Truth, finally, has a voice. A week after everything cracked wide open, I sat in a small legal office on South Congress, staring at a stack of documents that marked the end of one version of my life. Malcolm was across from me, reading through the pages with the calm of a man who'd walked people through war zones of paperwork. The smell of cedar and old carpet filled the quiet between us. "Final review?" he asked, tapping the top page. I nodded. The document laid out my formal step-down from day-to-day operations. It retained my founder rights, IP stake, board observer status, but I wouldn't sit in that building again. Not with her. Not with what remained of the culture she'd twisted. I signed. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't taking it back. It's letting it go before it eats you. We left without ceremony. No handshakes, no press. Just the rustle of paper and the echo of a choice I knew I'd make again if given the chance. That afternoon, I drove to the house I'd grown up in. I hadn't been back since the investigation started. It was the same modest one-story. The porch still creaked at the third step. My mother opened the door like she hadn't expected me to actually show. "Back already?" she asked. "I won't be long." The living room was dim. My father sat in his usual chair, eyes locked on a muted TV. He didn't turn when I entered. My mother trailed behind me, but didn't speak. I walked to the mantel. There had been a family photo there once. Me, Vera, our parents. At some point over the years, it had vanished. Quietly, intentionally. From my bag, I pulled a small frame. It was a photo taken the day we signed our first investor check. I was smiling, genuinely. Vera was already looking slightly to the side, probably eyeing the next camera. I set it on the mantel, not with anger, just certainty. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. "I can't make you see me," I said softly, "but I can stop needing it." No one replied. I left just as quietly as I came. That evening, I moved into a new loft on the east side of the city. It wasn't large. One bedroom, minimal furniture, high ceilings. But it was mine. The kind of space that didn't come with ghosts or footnotes. I unpacked slowly, deliberately. When I opened the last box, I found the quote I used to keep by my desk, tucked in its black frame. "You don't need their applause if you're no longer on their stage." I set it by the window. Then I rolled out a sketch pad and began roughing out the early model for my next firm. No logos, no branding. Just the first outline of what would be mine alone. It was late when I finally stood up to stretch. I walked to the door to check the lock before heading to bed, and that's when I saw it. A letter slid beneath the frame. No stamp, no return address, just my name, written in handwriting I knew by heart. Vera's. The letter sat on my desk for nearly 3 hours before I touched it. Handwritten, no return address. My name in tight cursive that once graced birthday cards and sticky notes. Vera always had elegant penmanship. Even her betrayals looked graceful. I opened it. "Lunel, I never meant for it to go this far. We were building something together, and then somewhere along the line, I felt like I was just building it for you. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I hope one day you'll understand why I did what I did." V. No apology. Just justification wrapped in the soft fabric of guilt. I folded the letter once, placed it in a legal folder, and emailed a scanned copy to Malcolm. Subject line: Add to evidence archive. The next morning, we walked into the Travis County Courthouse. Vera sat 2 rows ahead of me. Carter Haverly beside her, dressed like a failed venture capitalist, trying to blend into a courtroom. His smugness wilted quickly once the charges were read. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and misappropriation of company funds. The courtroom buzzed with press. I kept my eyes forward, hands still. No eye contact, no engagement. They called me bitter, I thought, as I listened to the opening arguments. I called it my audit. Malcolm spoke plainly and with sharp precision. He presented every document: wire transfers, digital trails, altered timestamps. The video footage rolled without commentary. It didn't need any. When the board's final letter was read, formally reinstating my status, issuing a public apology, and confirming full restitution, there was no applause, just the clack of a gavel and the quiet shuffle of consequence. Outside, the headline was already live. The founder who fought without screaming. By afternoon, I stood in front of our old headquarters. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. My presence there had already been reinstated, permanently, whether or not I stepped through those doors again. I turned and walked 2 blocks to the building that housed my new office. Top floor. Minimalist, sunlit. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and placed one final document in the drawer labeled Archive Closed, Case Closed. The space was quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty, but earned. Then came the buzz, a message from an executive at a rising firm. Not asking me to join, asking me to lead. I didn't answer right away. I let the moment breathe. I walked to the window, watched the sun climb over the Austin skyline, light bouncing off rooftops I once only glimpsed in passing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. Some stories don't end in reunion. They end in redefinition. As I looked up at the sun breaking through the window of my new firm, I whispered one word to no one in particular. Next.